Hello, welcome to another video on our channel. Here we translate testimonies of people who went through near-death experiences. Today we are going to know Brandon's story. He says he met a great spiritual family on the other side. If you are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now. Activate the notification bell to be notified of each new video. Now let's listen to Brandon's testimony. Sharing this story is the same as letting them see a little of my soul and my heart, as it has become a constituent part of the human being I have become. While it takes courage to expose something so valuable, and be subject to all kinds of criticism, it is also a necessary act. I feel that I need to be one more link in this chain that has been bringing messages from the spiritual plane. That's why I decided to tell this simple but very important episode of my life story. When I was 25, I went through something of an existential crisis. I spent my teens involved in a youth group at my church, but there came a time when it no longer made sense for me to attend the congregation. What was good were the friendships built. But, even though that wasn't my way, I was left with an empty space inside me, so I continued in search of finding my place. At the age of 25, I had already graduated and started a promising career within a multinational company. But this apparent success was not making me happy. I tried to fill that void by working as much as possible and going out on the weekends. It turns out that I never liked going to parties and bars at night. I forced myself to do that to forget that something was missing inside me. For my friends, that life made sense, but I wanted something else. So, when the party ended, when the lights went out in my room, the sadness returned. I wasn't used to drinking, there were few times I consumed alcohol. But there was a Saturday when I decided to drink with my friends, to see if that anguish would dissipate. We arrived at a bar in one of the hottest neighborhoods on summer nights. We started drinking around 10 p.m. My friends, used to it, continued drinking without any problems, but I, at 11 p.m., was almost passing out from being so drunk. So I leaned back on a couch and took a nap. I woke up to one of my friends slapping me in the face. He said it was time to go home. This one was the most lucid of the group. The others were already worse off than I was hours ago. When he woke me up, the sun had already risen and the drunkenness had passed, but I had a very bad headache. So, it was up to the two of us to lead that herd of drunks through the city streets, to their homes. At a certain point along the way, one of the friends decided to walk along the sidewalk, as we used to do when we were children. That was a busy avenue and I realized that he was taking a risk. Whenever he fell from the curb, some car passed very close to him, honking. I walked down the sidewalk to the street and started to walk behind him. Then he lost his balance and fell. I went to help lift him up, and I told him to walk on the sidewalk, as it was dangerous. He didn't like it, and when I grabbed him to get up he pushed me and I ended up getting hit by a car. That scene I was experiencing disappeared instantly. I showed up in the most beautiful place I've ever been in my entire life. It was a white sand beach. The water was sparkling blue. I was wetting my feet, I felt an inexplicable freshness. There was also a wonderful breeze. I was in a state of deep peace. I shed tears every time I remember. The landscape was paradisiacal, the transparent waters let beautiful green corals appear. There were several shades of green and blue composing the waters of that sea. There was also very lush vegetation and some hills forming a slope. Suddenly I began to feel the presence of dozens of beings around me. I don't have words to explain what I felt. They began to communicate telepathically with me. I could hear her thoughts of joy and love for me. At that moment I was completely taken over by this immense love. I felt totally integrated with those beings that I couldn't even see yet. What I was feeling was that I already knew that place and those beings, and we all shared an infinite joy for this reunion. They were like my spiritual family. I had the feeling of belonging to a collective soul, made up of all those beings. Suddenly I started to see them. They started to appear like light spots around me. It was the most beautiful sight I've ever seen. My will was to stay there, but at the same time I knew it wasn't the time. However, I also knew that I would see that place and those beings again. After a while, immersed in the purest ecstasy, I was pulled out of that place and sucked into my body. The feeling of being back was quite unpleasant, in a physical sense. A lot of pain in the body. But I was still flooded with that feeling of peace and belonging. That feeling stayed with me for a few more hours and then it passed. But that experience completely changed my worldview. It gave me a direction in life, everything started to make sense. I realized that only that feeling was capable of filling the void of meaning in my existence. After that, I took a moment for myself every day. At that moment I meditate and concentrate to regain the peace and love I felt on the other side. I started to have a connection with nature that I didn't have before. I became very sensitive to all celestial and terrestrial movement. I observe the phases of the moon, the growth of plants, the movement of the tides, and I perceive in all of this that force of integration that I felt during the experience. So, what did you think of this testimony? Leave your impressions in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Let's bring more people the hope that there is life beyond what the eyes can see.